Hello and welcome to this episode of The Bottom Bins. And today we have a very special episode for you. It's Richie here, joined by Oran. Oran, how's things?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I can't complain, lad. Can't complain at all. Now, today's episode, we're doing another Man United episode because undoubtedly it seems as though, Oran, United are probably the winners of the market thus far. Two deals completed, Joshua Zirkzee and Lenny Yoro coming to Manchester United. Now, what I wanted to talk about today, Oran, is just a little bit about this new ownership structure that is now in place at Manchester United and what it potentially means for the club moving forward. Now, an article came out on The Athletic this week and it was about Omar Barada's involvement in the Lenny Yoro deal. Of course, Yoro was apparently holding out for Real Madrid. That bid never came and Barada was influential, according to The Athletic, in getting the Euro deal over the line. So, from your own perspective, two Man United fans here, how much of an impact can somebody like Omar Barada at the top of this new structure have for Manchester United moving forward?
Yeah, well, you look at what he done at Manchester City. You see the impact he had and the influence he had on the signings under arguably one of the best managers of all time, Pep Guardiola. The success, obviously, Manchester City have had in the past and will have in the future, depending on these breaches. And it's unknown how much influence he had in terms of those breaches as well in the Premier League rules. But look, the whole thing about Man United this season, with the new ownership model coming in, was to get them to be a football club again rather than a commercial club. And Omar Barada was one of the first appointments by Sir Jim Ratcliffe and by the club. You can see the statement of intent Manchester United are having in the transfer market. Me and Connors used to see in maybe the ownership or transfer strategy focusing on one player for the entirety of the summer and potentially not even getting them, like we had with Frankie de Jong in 2021. Whereas, it looks like now we know the positions that we want to strengthen in. They have 3 or 4 different targets in each position and they're working on multiple deals at once rather than focusing on, say, Joshua Zirkzee and then focusing on the likes of Lenny Yoro. Before Zirkzee, or potentially looking at Tony and could look at Tony again. With Lenny Yoro, it looked like we were actually going to sign Matthias de Ligt, and then the Yoro deal became possible because he rejected Real Madrid. And look, now we're looking at Manuel Ugarte and some Colombian fella from the Colombian league, and I don't know much about him, being totally honest, but apparently he performed very well in the Copa America. So, this transfer model of different targets, working on multiple deals at different times, it's what every proper football club does. And I think that was the target for Manchester United with the new ownership model coming in. Get the likes of David Brailsworth in and Dan Ashworth in to bring us back to being a football club, doing football deals rather than signing the big name for the big money and then it not working out for anybody.
Yeah, and I think, going right back to when we started this channel and when we were a podcast, and something that we spoke about quite frequently. In fact, I actually think it's like our 3rd episode ever on the podcast. It was an episode regarding Ronaldo leaving the football club, but we also took the last half an hour of the episode to talk about the potential new ownership that will be coming into Manchester United. Now, at the time, we had the Qatari bid as well as Jim Ratcliffe's bid. Jim Ratcliffe ultimately won out. Ineos now in place at Manchester United. And it's interesting because a lot of the things that he says in interviews, Oran, they're all sort of centered around the idea that it's about being the best in class. Stadium, best in class. Training ground, best in class. People within the football structure, best in class. That comes right down to the managers and the players. Now, when you look at these two transfers, Oran, Zirkzee, a 21-year-old, Yoro, an 18-year-old. These are young players. You could make the argument, and I have seen it online, that, these signings have so much still to prove in their career. They've so much to prove on the European stage. Zirkzee had a breakout season this year with Bologna, played for Bayern Munich previously, scored 12 goals in Serie A last season. Now, I'm just going to play a devil's advocate here with you. 12 goals in Serie A doesn't sound like a lot, but he is a player that has shown Lots of promise, lots of potential. He drops into midfield. He can carry the ball. He plays with the ball at his feet. He does offer something different than Hoyland. Last season, we had an expectation that Hoyland, we would be happy if he scored over 10 goals. And he did manage that feat. What's your expectation for Joshua Zirkzee then?
It's difficult. Like as you say, 12 goals. It doesn't sound like much. It's a goal more than Rasmus Hoyland scored in Serie A before he joined us. And obviously the hefty price tag we paid for Hoyland, I wouldn't say yet it's paid off, but you can definitely see the potential in the player there, and he does look like a number 9 who could be playing for Man United for a long, long time. But with Joshua Zirkzee, as you said, he's played for Bayern Munich. You know, he was in the Dutch squad there at the Euros. Didn't make too many minutes, didn't make too many appearances, but to be there was a big experience for him. He's a young kid, and as we just spoke about, the different structure at Manchester United now wasn't just the behind the scenes guys that were changed. We've got 2 first team football coaches in as our assistant managers in Ruud van Nistelrooy and René Hake. And obviously, any Man United fan, any Premier League fan, really any football fan should know that Ruud van Nistelrooy was one of the deadliest strikers ever. So working under the likes of him is only going to improve Joshua Zirkzee. Obviously, a Dutch connection there and all as well. But if I'm being truthful, my expectations are low for Zirkzee. I don't see him starting ahead of Rasmus Hoyland. He could, 100%. But I see his game complementing Hoyland in terms of we mightn't see Joshua Zirkzee play as the traditional striker. I'd be lying if I said I've seen a lot of Joshua Zirkzee. I haven't. I've seen YouTube clips. I've seen compilations. I'm not going to sit here and say I've watched Bologna all last season to watch Joshua Zirkzee. I haven't. Do you know what I mean? And any Man United fan who says they have is lying to you. Do you know what I mean? But he, from what I've seen in clips, and I know clips, you're only going to see the best of a player. But from what I have seen and what I've heard from different sources, and even from Ten Hag himself and from Zirkzee himself, he seems like more of the ball playing striker, like a Harry Kane towards the end of his career now, as we're seeing. But he does have that speed, he does have that agility for being such a big fella as well. 6'5", he's a target man in the box as well, hopefully for set pieces. But to answer your question, my expectations for him in his first season in the Premier League are low, and I feel every Man United's fans' expectations should be low. We haven't paid a big transfer fee for the fella. He's still breaking into his own game. Do you know what I mean? Let alone coming into the Premier League for the first time at 23 years of age. He needs to be given time, as does the manager, as do the new assistant managers, as does the sporting project. Give the fella time, and hopefully the payment pays off for them.
Yeah, and Oran, just even when you mention the aspect of time, and time is something in football now that we are seeing less and less of. It's a luxury now that teams, I don't want to say that teams can't afford, but it's maybe a luxury that teams don't want to afford. Now, it seems as though with RATCLIFFE, with the ownership structure, if we take it back to the FA Cup final last year, Oran, massive result for Manchester United, probably an even bigger result for Erik ten Hag. I think, in my opinion, I personally think that's the only reason he's in the job, is because he beat Man City in the FA Cup final. I think had we have been beat, we probably would have had a new man in through the door.
You didn't want him going.
No. Do you know what I mean? No, definitely didn't.
It's a realistic possibility.
It is. And it just seems as though now that we have Barada at the top, Ashworth, finally, thankfully, he's in the post, he's in the position. They have said nothing but positive things about Erik ten Hag. Ashworth said when he was with Newcastle, he still admired the job that Erik ten Hag was doing. Of course, would have seen ten Hag quite closely because Newcastle and United last season and the previous season were so tight to one another. So I think, Oran, when you look at all these sort of stars aligning, and we have a manager, a boardroom, an owner, a football structure that seem to be coherent and want to work with one another, how quickly or how much time do you give this process before we start seeing some reward?
Look, Ten Hag done an interview the other day, and he was talking about Ralph Rangnick's time at Manchester United. Everybody remembers the Ralph Rangnick interview, especially every Man United fan remembers the Ralph Rangnick interview where he said, you need to strip the club from the bottom up. We're seeing that process now. He said we might need 10 to 15 signings. That's realistic. That's the case. We need to get rid of the dead wood at United, which happens every summer. We say this, we need to get rid of the dead wood. But if you talk about success at Manchester United, that's what needs to happen. You look at Jose Mourinho's time at Manchester United. He said there's certain players at United that need to go during his tenure. Them players are still at Manchester United. Do you know what I mean? So we need to really focus on getting players out of the club as well. I do like the new transfer strategy, the new ownership model, in terms of we're not necessarily paying big money for players. We're not necessarily giving them big contracts. Lenny Yoro and Joshua Zirkzee. Lenny Yoro's reportedly on 125,000 a week. Zirkzee on 60,000 a week. When you think about Anthony Martial and Varane, who they're replacing, that's over £500,000 worth a week that they were earning. You take that back. Now it's from 500,000, you're talking 200,000 now for these two players. That's huge business. The transfer model is apparently we're not going to sign players unless we want them that are over 25. We're looking at the younger players who are going to be the present and future of Manchester United rather than quick fixes. Like you're not going to see another Casemiro signing. Even though I personally have a real admiration for Casemiro, and especially the work he done in the first season. I feel he was the man who got us the Carabao Cup in the first season. That was our first trophy in 7 years. There's criticisms on the second season, of course, from myself as well, but for the majority of the season he was played out of position. I didn't feel it was entirely his fault, and I think that's another thing with fans of English football and potentially football in general. When you're up, you're up. When you're down, you're down. You know what I mean? And it's easy to jump on the bandwagon of what people say on social media. But my opinion is I give it at least 3 windows. So that's a season and a half, 2 seasons. Eric Ten Hag's been in the job for 2 years now. He's won 2 trophies. To me, that's success, but it's not where Manchester United should be. However, nobody since Sir Alex Ferguson has got Manchester United to where Manchester United should be. You need to give a fella time, and you need to give his backroom staff time. And with the new ownership model, that's exactly what they should be getting.
And I suppose, Oran, when you look at previous managements, you use Mourinho, Rangnick as examples. I know Rangnick was only in the job for 6 months. However, what he said in that interview was quite damning. That Manchester United had fallen behind other clubs. And to be honest, he's not the only person to say that. Cristiano Ronaldo also said the same thing on his exit interview as well. It seems as though Eric Ten Hag is the first manager that now has this footballing structure in place. And, he's now the first Manchester United manager post Sir Alex Ferguson that seems to really, not only just have the backing of the fans, but I would say the backing of the entire football club as well, which, from a Manchester United fans perspective, I think the only thing we can really say here is it's totally positive that information like this is coming out of the camp, because you think, Oran, when anything's leaked out of Manchester United, it's normally negative, and it's normally fallouts within the camp, players maybe not on board with the manager, the rumblings of sackings within the board. These are the only things that tend to be leaked out about Manchester United. But what I've seen from the beginning of this transfer window, any articles where there are supposed leaks, or any articles that are coming from reputable companies like The Guardian, like The Athletic, guys who are tuned in to what Manchester United are doing, it all seems to be quite positive at the minute. Now, we haven't kicked a football yet. Premier League hasn't started, but I'm glad that there is such positivity around the camp at the minute. But what I want to put to you, Oran, is let's hypothesize for a second, and let's say that Manchester United don't hit the ground running. Season starts quite poorly. Let's say United are 7th or 8th by Christmas. For a man that's just been given a contract extension, and you would feel like that's enough to make you believe, Do you see any possibility next season of this new ownership structure blowing the whole thing up and saying, no, actually we picked the wrong man, sorry?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's not my opinion. I don't want Eric Ten Hag sacked. But football's a results business. I think that's probably the most used statement we've ever said on the bottom bins. Football is a results business. Um, and he's bought himself time with an FA Cup win, if we're being realistic. He didn't have his full squad last year. You know, I see what Ten Hag can bring to Manchester United. I see the type of football he wants to play. But when he doesn't have his full squad or the squad that he wants to play with available to him, you're not going to be able to implement that as well as you possibly want to. However, obviously criticism has to come on to Eric Ten Hag as well. Some of the signings haven't worked out. You look at Anthony as the main culprit, 100 million quid or 100 million euros, and he's trash. Like he's not good enough for the Premier League, let alone for Manchester United. No disrespect to the fella, I think there is a footballer there, but he's not good enough for Man United. But yeah, if we're sitting 7th or 8th by Christmas, potentially out of the Carabao Cup, absolutely, I think Eric Ten Hag will go. However, I don't think that decision should be made just based off, what may have happened. Like, they can't have any pre-existing thoughts. They've given this fella a new contract. They can't be thinking, oh, he didn't really perform last season, but he won the FA Cup. They can't have that in their mind. They need to have given him this contract for the right reasons, and going into the season with new expectations rather than previous thoughts about what this manager can or can't do. I feel it needs to be based on availability too. When they were talking about sacking Ten Hag, look, everybody talks about Pochettino and that. I do rate Pochettino as manager, but I don't think he should be Manchester United manager. In my opinion, he's never won anything. I don't feel that's right for Man United. The likes of Tuchel and that as well. There needs to be a manager available if Manchester United is going to sack Ten Hag. Yes, Rangnick was in for 6 months, but as Cristiano Ronaldo said, and I know he's doing a good job with Austria, he wasn't the caliber of manager Manchester United should have been getting in there for 6 months. At that rate, why not just keep Ollie? Do you know what I mean? They can't be going out and just sacking Eric Ten Hag with no manager available. If they're doing that, they need to do a lot of research beforehand. This is who we could get in for the possibility of Ten Hag leaving. And if that's Southgate, I'll not support Man United anymore. But look, I think with this new ownership model that it is going to be different. I think if they are going to sack Manchester United manager Ten Hag, it'll be a calculated decision. I don't think it'll be off the whim of what the fans are saying, which the Glazers probably done, and what Ed Woodward and Murda and all them fella probably would have done. But it'll be interesting to see. But is it a possibility? Absolutely.
Yeah.
No Premier League manager's job is safe. You see it so many times. The rollover of managers at every single club, let alone small clubs. The huge clubs are the ones that are sacking their managers. That's just the way football is right now, and it's crazy.
Yeah, I think probably the only one that's safe is probably Pep. City probably realistically wouldn't turn around and sack Pep. But look, Oran, I think it's important, just as we finish this episode, to touch over potential business that Manchester United could still do in this market. So personal terms are agreed with Manuel Ugarte, midfielder from PSG. He was actually on United's radar last year before he joined PSG. Very talented destroyer. The stats would suggest, Oran, he's, and even from watching a few of his games, he's not a progressive midfielder. He is very much a sit in front of the back four, defend, real powerhouse in there. Now, I think we actually featured him on a previous episode when we were the podcast, where we were talking about top 12 players to look out for amongst Europe's leagues. And it was you that actually had suggested him. And your analysis of him, and the first thing you said was, I'd love a player like that at Manchester United. Bear in mind, Eric Ten Hag was still the manager then. So when you see a transfer like this, again, this is something that maybe you wanted to see a couple of years ago, and it seems as though United are finally going to jump on it and get it done. Now, the De Ligt rumours haven't died down either. Bayern are in a bit of financial trouble. They're going to need to sell at some point. Now, United are not budging from the €30 million mark, Bayern 150, but United are not budging. And to be quite honest with you, Oran, I'm glad to see United adopt a policy like that. Because how often have we seen where United have went, fuck it, and just chucked money at it, thinking that that's going to be the right way to deal with the situation. Now, not only the incomings, Oran, we have outgoings to look at as well. There was a big report last week broke that apparently Marcus Rashford wants out of Manchester United. Apparently the relationship between him and Ten Hag is really tense at the minute, and for myself personally, people who have listened to the bottom bins, watched the bottom bins, like they all know, I love Marcus Rashford. Like if and Martial, yeah. God, imagine I lost two of them in the one transfer window, lad.
You'd be out of here, lad.
I'd probably need to go and support somebody else, lad.
Therapy or something with the head.
Might have to be. God, that'd be awful. But yes, look, they're saying Rashford could possibly leave, trying to sell Victor Lindelof as well. Wan-Bissaka being linked with West Ham too. So there are outgoings to be made there, Oran. You made the point earlier about the deadwood needing to be clearing out. We say that every season. So realistically, Oran, who could you see coming into Manchester United? What impact are they going to have? But who could leave the club also?
Difficult question, lad. Because obviously you mentioned Ugarte and Matthias de Ligt. I can realistically see both of them coming, but it all depends on outgoings. We're really treading that line on the profit and sustainability rules. So we need to see outgoings, and it's the we keep going back to this new ownership model. It's the real problem that they're going to have is dealing with the mess that the previous owners made in Manchester United. We're seeing the likes of Victor Lindelof, who I do rate as a defender. I do. He's probably on 150 grand a week. Do you know what I mean? We talked about Rafael Varane, who was on 300 grand a week. Martial, 250 grand a week. No other club is paying that.
No.
Why do you think the likes of David Gea, who is about to announce a new club, and I'm happy for him, he was a Manchester United legend. David Gea was on like £500,000 a week. Obviously, he's not going to get a club. Do you know what I mean? Even though he is one of the best goalkeepers. If he's not willing to budge on a wage like that, that's one of the best goalkeepers in Premier League history, statistically and realistically, who was without a club for an entire year. That's not going to be the same player who goes back to any squad. It makes no difference now. And I can see him going to the likes of Como, who Oran has just signed for. He's not going to get a big European team. He's not going to be the starting goalkeeper at a big European team anyway. If he does go back, he needs to realistically be thinking, I could be the number 2 here. But it's them big wages and, different stupid clauses and stuff we've included in certain players' contracts that it has destroyed Manchester United from the inside. We have 5 transfers or 6 transfers now in history that have been over £25 million. That's absolutely ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? When you think of the talent that's came through at Manchester United, and we have 6 transfers that have sold for over £25 million, and then you look at Manchester City, who have sold Liam Delap, who was on loan at Hull City last year, for £20 million to Ipswich. It doesn't make sense to me. James Trafford sold from Manchester City to Burnley for £20 million because he was the League One goalkeeper of the year. Whereas we're selling last year Matej Kovar, who went and won the Bundesliga with Bayer Leverkusen, went and made the Europa League final, won the German Super Cup, won everything with Bayer Leverkusen, was prominent in their season as well. We sold him for £8 million. Stuff like that doesn't make sense, and that's where this ownership model needs to come in and really go from the bottom up. Because we need to become a selling club as well as a buying club. Manchester United for too long has been a buying club, and we need to become a selling club to, 1, stay within them profit and sustainability rules, and 2, financial fair play rules. Do you know what I mean? I can see Wan-Bissaka leaving. I don't want him to leave. I think Wan-Bissaka is a very good asset. And I think for £10 or £15 million, whoever does sign him is getting an absolute bargain. But he is in the last year of his contract. He's probably not going to extend. It's realistically who needs to go. If we're signing Matthias de Ligt, it made sense for me to sell Willy Kambala, but that's what I like about these new types of transfers. We've got a buyback clause for the fella. Do you know what I mean? If he goes and becomes a world beater, happy days. Same with Lenny Euro. Everybody's talking about his big transfer fee. Yeah, it's a big transfer fee for somebody with 1 year in his contract. And yes, with add-ons, it can go up to €70 million. However, if that fella ends up costing €70 million, with the new clauses and all that are in his contract, that means he's been excellent for Manchester United, and it's going to look like a steal anyway. So that, I like that, but yeah, I can see Lindelof going. I don't want Maguire to go, but I can see Maguire potentially being subject to a few bids. Um, I love Scott McTominay, but I think he could potentially go, and I think he was a very valuable asset for Manchester United last year. Um, Casemiro looks like he could go, but that's either way. It depends what kind of money you get. Look, there could be an exodus at Manchester United, or realistically, when you look at the different things they've got in their contract and the price of their contracts per week, we could see next to no outgoings, and we could see no more incomings. You just never know. It's tough to see, but um, we do seem to be making more effort on arrivals and departures at the minute, and I think in the next week or two we're going to see a shift, and that's going to be right. Let's get all these guys gone, and let's focus again on arrivals. Yeah. But who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, and really, it's like you said with those PSR rules. United probably do need to focus a wee bit more now on outgoings as opposed to ingoings. Thankfully, personal terms don't seem to be an issue with the players that we're in for. So exactly. So it is. Look, it's going to come down to probably shifting a few players off the books before we can afford to bring more in. Just because we are, it's like you said, we're treading that line a bit finely. And to be honest with you, I think that line has maybe come a wee bit later than I would have expected. I maybe expected us to be under the cosh maybe last season before. So, look, we'll focus on the outgoings. Hopefully we get a few out the door. Not that you like losing players, but, it's like you said, there's a couple of players there that could probably be doing with moving on at this stage. But I think that's going to do it for this episode, folks. Hopefully you enjoyed this little chat about Manchester United and the new ownership structure. If you haven't already, please go out and check out myself and Oshin's video. We broke down some of the biggest deals that have already happened in the transfer window. And if you want to go back a wee bit further, please check out myself and Oran's analysis of the proposed Mason Greenwood transfer to Marseille. We didn't even get to chat about that either.
I know, well, let's finish now. It's fine.
Yeah. So if you want to get the lowdown on that deal and get the opinion of two Man United fans who, we're fans of Mason Greenwood, previous to his allegations. So if you want to go and check that video out, please head on over, give it a watch. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button, guys. Hit the like button. It helps us out massively in the algorithm. And we're growing. We're growing at a big rate, a steady rate at the minute. So come be a part of this community. This community is for you. We've said it I don't know how many times. If you have any suggestions, text us. Throw us a message on Instagram. We will absolutely get back to you. If there's something you want to see us talk about, please.
Yeah. Instagram, we're growing really well. We've just hit 450 followers. We're flying over there. Come over there, see the freshest content that we've got. You'll probably see it on Instagram before you see it in anything else. So come over there and give us a follow, share it. And we're also going to be doing a giveaway on Instagram in the next week, so keep your eyes peeled for that too.
Big giveaway. So please head on over there, subscribe, follow, like, share, whatever it is the platform wants you to do. Please do it, because you will be doing us a massive, massive favour. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, keep it bottom bins.
Keep it bottom bins.